I call to order this meeting of the Greenfield Board of Health on January 15th at 6 o'clock. We will now proceed with the roll call of members.
The tab of my account. So press S. Press X.
What?
Press S on the keyboard.
S?
Esk. Esk.
S?
ESK.
Oh.
ESC.
Escape? Where is
It's
it?
in the top.
Oh,
It's in the.
okay.
It should bring you from full screen now.
Cameron, do you mind muting yourself, please?
Okay, so we'll start with a roll call of members. Ellis,
Yes, I'm here.
okay, and Dr. Darius Greenbacher. You say present or here?
I think he just muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Dr. Greenbacher, could you unmute?
Might be having some connection issues.
Matt, can you?
Yeah, I just asked him
It's
to unmute.
bottom left button. I'm not sure. Can Dr. Greenbacher, can you hear us? Okay. So could you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Please? Okay.
Oh, hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so you're here.
Right.
Yes. Okay. This public comment, but that's only for the hearing. So we'll start with new business, which is an introduction to the Board of Health by Michael Hugo. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I am. And I trust you can all hear me. Okay, thank you. So I am Michael Hugo, and I am with the Mass Association of Health Boards, and we are the service organization that
Yes.
is a member service organization for the benefit of the 351 boards of health across the state. I'm the strategy and government relations director. I'm a retired attorney. I practiced law for 35 years. I served on the Framingham Board of Health for 15 years, chaired it for 8, took on some very contentious things while I was the chair, took on some drug company issues in our town, and took on some toxic dump sites, and took on some chemical transfer companies and kicked them all out of town. So I can tell you pretty much from experience that I've probably lived through about 100% of what I'm about to present. I was asked to come today to talk to you. I know that you're all a brand new board, and I congratulate you on your appointments. Halfway congratulate you. The other half of me gives you condolences. You're very, very blessed, though. You have some excellent staff in your town, and you're part of a collaborative group with some towns in your area that is an extremely progressive and forward-thinking group of public health officials and board members. So with that, I'm going to kick off. We're going to cover a couple of things. I've got a lot of slides. I'm going to fly through them, and I'm going to make them available. Michael will be able to distribute them after this. I'll email them out tonight so that you've got them, Michael, and then you can send them on tomorrow, I guess, if you want. But we're going to cover the legal authority of boards of health, and we're going to talk a little bit about open meeting law, public records, and ethics as part of it. But first, I think that what you need to understand is that boards of health are completely different than anything else in government in Massachusetts, in municipal government. Back in the 1700s, the legislature looked at public health issues and said, we know nothing about this. We're not going to pretend. We're going to let the cities and towns figure it out for themselves, because that's where Massachusetts comes from, is cities and towns figuring things out for themselves. So they abdicated all of their authority to local boards of health, which means that you are sitting actually not as an arm of your town government, but you're sitting as an embodiment of the state legislature. And we'll get into what that means in about 2 seconds. But before we do, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to, let's see here, share screen 2. And I trust that you can all see this, and I'm going to go into presenter mode, I hope. Yes, okay. So just so you know, I can't see you right now. All I can see is a screen of it's called presenter mode. All I can see is all of these slides in front of me. So if you need me, you have to speak up because I won't see you. All right, and so let me kick off. All right, so our standard disclaimer, and every time that you see anybody from MAHB, myself or my colleague Cheryl Sabara, you'll always see this disclaimer because we are not here in place of your city solicitor, town council, or anything of that sort. We are here as an education arm. We're funded by our dues of our members. All 351 boards of health belong, and we're funded by some very generous grants from the Department of Public Health to carry on their legal technical assistance as their arm for educating boards of health. So let's jump into it. When you're talking about laws, there's several different levels of laws. There's federal law, and when it comes to public health, federal law basically is the bottom level. It's everything that the states do has to at least get to what the federal law says, and then they can add to that. Everything that the State Department of Public Health says is the next level, and you can actually exceed. You can't go backwards. You can't be more liberal than the state law, but you can be more you could be more regulatory than the DPH and the Department of Environmental Protection. Those are our two main departments that we deal with. So actually, what these cases say is that the legislature has given the boards of health the authority to make reasonable health regulations, and it's considered a police function, a police power, and you have to be respectful of people's freedoms, but you don't have to accede to them. In other words, you can order people to wear masks. You can order immunizations. You can order people to stay in their homes. We saw that all too recently, and unfortunately, I don't think we got a lot of it right, what we were doing, but we were all just doing the best we could, trying to come up with a way to stop the spread of COVID back in those days. But your rights as a board of health and your powers are even stronger than any business interest, as long as you do a regulation that's reasonable, and we'll get into what a reasonable regulation is. So locally, this is what I just said. The only place where you can't act is if there's preemption. That would mean that the state law says that nobody else can regulate this but us. The federal law says that in some instances. There's some issues right now going on in Massachusetts involving cell towers. The FCC has the power to cite a cell tower. Boards of health have nothing to say about it, even though they try to from time to time. That's not a good exercise of your time or effort. But if that cell tower comes online and people become sick as a result of it, you can order that cell tower to close down, because that part of it is not preempted. You have ultimate authority when it comes to deciding anything that has to do with public health. And we're going to really get into that in a couple of seconds. The SJC has consistently, they have never ruled against a board of health in history where a health regulation has been rational and has been based on some record and is not illegal, arbitrary, or capricious. Those are the only times that the SJC ever would, but they never have, because they've always found a way. Because any rational presumptions, when the SJC is reviewing something that a Board of Health has done and that a Superior Court has ruled on, and it goes up to the SJC on appeal, any kind of presumptions are made in favor of what you have decided as board members. No judge can substitute his or her judgment for the decisions that you made. They can only ask whether or not you made the decisions properly, which means on scientific evidence, giving people their constitutional rights to be heard and things of that sort. This is this is the case that actually says that the United Comb case from 2004 says that the court's not authorized to weigh evidence, find facts, or exercise any discretion or substitute its judgment for that of the administrative body when they're talking about boards of health. This is not true of planning boards, zoning boards, and all of the other boards in town, your library board. The court can substitute its judgment anytime it wants against anything but a Board of Health decision. You have the ultimate authority, and as long as you've done it based on a smart, complete record, and MAHB will stand with you when you have to do any of these regulations, will help you to do it so that you're safeguarded, and so that if you do get challenged, you will beat that challenge. And we'll talk about that in 5 or 6 slides from now. So as long as you're not preempted, you can act. Now, the reason I have these 2 pictures here is that these are actually photographs of water in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, as it comes out of the faucet in one section of town. Of course, it would happen to be the environmental justice part of town, where people are of less income, less education, and less sophistication. And the water supply in that part of Great Barrington can look like this on a summer day. And so that Board of Health challenged, ordered the water company to clean it up. They issued an order, a cease and desist order, and an order to correct. And they told the water company that while you're figuring this out, you have to supply 1.5 gallons per person per day of potable water in bottles to every single customer that you have. There were 498 households, and they decided that after 7 days, if they didn't comply, the Board of Health would impose a $1,000 per day per household fine, which is $480,000 a day. The company came back to the Board of Health and said, that's an unreasonable order because our net revenues are $630,000 last year. And in a day and a half, you will bankrupt our company if we somehow fall out of compliance. They took it to the Superior Court, and the Superior Court said the Board of Health had no right to regulate it because it was preempted by DEP. So that is now on appeal to the SJC. The Board of Health will win. And I'm saying that with certainty because at a recent function with the Mass Health Officers Association, one of our sister organizations, I got up and asked the commissioner of the DEP in front of 680 health officials whether or not she was aware of the Housatonic water. Yes. You aware of the court decision? Yes. It was only a week earlier, and she was totally aware and totally familiar with it. And I asked her if she would join us because the court said only the DEP could make that regulation. Board of Health can't. And I said, what's your position on that? She said, I can't make a comment on litigation, but I think the judge got it 100% wrong. Well, Madam Commissioner, will you join us in an amicus brief in that case? And the answer was yes. So we're going to go to the SJC. DEP is going to say the judge got it wrong. We're going to say the judge got it wrong, and we're going to win. So, but that's the kind of action that we see and what happens. So when you're doing regulations, you should always keep this slide in mind, and you'll always hear us say it in almost every one of our presentations, that just because you could do something doesn't mean you should. Town of Brookline around 20 years ago wanted to ban cell phones in automobiles, drivers. It was before the state took that action. They could do it because there was a public health reason. And they had all sorts of opinions of council, and MAHB opined, yes, you can, but you shouldn't because you don't have blue lights in your car, and who's going to stop the people at the traffic intersections when they do it? So they could do it, but that doesn't mean that they should. As far as your general regulatory authority, uh, these two that are highlighted are the most common that you're going to be coming up against as a Board of Health. You do have authority over transportation, disposal of refuse, house drainage and sewer connections. Certainly, if you do Title V, if you have any kinds of septic systems, that's you. Excuse me. The sanitary code including the housing code. But the two highlighted are nuisance and noisome and offensive trades, and we're going to get into those. So nuisance, really, the nuisance statute is where you almost everything that you're confronted with, you can find a way to enforce it. That water was a nuisance action. That we just showed you, the brown water. That was a nuisance order saying that you have to stop doing what you're doing, because the statute, Chapter 111, Section 122, this is one of the most important statutes that you can know of on the Board of Health, says that the Board of Health shall examine into all nuisances, sources of filth, and causes of sickness within its town, which may, in its opinion, be injurious to public health. So it now becomes, is it your opinion that this may injure public health? It's not certainty. It's not, we know this will. It's our opinion that this might be dangerous. And if that's the case, then the statute goes on to say that if in its opinion it's a nuisance, the Board of Health shall take action to abate the nuisance. And that little quote there is from a law professor who wrote the book on nuisance. Every lawyer studies that in law school and should be familiar with that quote. And with the most difficult legal concept, of course, it's up to you as a Board of Health to determine what that is. So this is your obligation. This is the exceptions are the only exception actually is generally acceptable farming procedures. And I learned that in Framingham because we had a farmer who was driving his truck and letting the cow manure fall off the back. We brought him in front of the Board of Health, and basically he said, "Tough darts for you guys. I'm a farmer. You can't make me not drop droppings in the middle of the street." And he was right. So we didn't do anything beyond that. And we didn't even realize it until then, but there's a lot of things in the law that a lot of people don't realize. So if it's a farming activity, which is 5 or more acres of land used for agriculture or for livestock for profit, you can't regulate that. And that's in a nutshell. It's much more complicated than that. So again, it's a judgment call. If it's your opinion, you get to do something about it. And you want to ask yourself if it's contained to one individual or a household, and if so, could that nuisance spread? And if so, could that spread to the community? And if the answer to that is yes, you can go ahead and regulate that situation. We're working on one right now with the town of Medway involving the placement of 1,480 fans around batteries in an outdoor facility where they're setting up a battery farm for storing wind and solar power. And those fans, each one of the batteries has 4 fans. It's going to violate, as soon as they go into operation, it's going to violate the noise ordinance for the town, and the Board of Health is going to shut it down. So that's the kind of thing that you have to worry about. Does it affect health? And here is where it's great to have a physician on your board, because you're going to be relying on the doctor here over the years to help you to determine just how bad this is going to be and how bad it can be. And so if you decide that there's a nuisance, this is actually the Great Barrington Order. It goes on for 12 or 14 pages, but I put that picture back there so you'd have some context. There was I talked about this penalty that we did in this particular case, and it was $1,000 per day per household, and we held a hearing. And actually, at the back of this particular order, there's 3 pages of cites to medical documents, medical studies having to do with water safety and ingesting manganese and haloacetic acid, which is in this water, and the dangers of that. And that's part of the order. We actually appended the scientific papers to the order so that when we go to court, which we're in court now, we could show the judge that it was a reasoned decision based on scientific evidence. We supply templates for anything that you need. I think your health director already knows this, and I'm sure he does, that we will supply any templates that you come up with. If you're in the middle of one of these nuisance actions, you call, and Cheryl and I will be here just like we are tonight to do this with you. The other one is noisome trade. It sounds like it has to be noisy, but that's not necessarily the case. What we're looking at here is a neighborhood that surrounds a 24-hour, 7-day concrete batch plant where they're grinding, pounding rocks 24/7. And you can see right here how close. This is a house, and these are all houses that are around it. And in the middle of this facility, and actually even around the edges here, they're pounding rocks 24/7. This is a senior living. I don't know that it's assisted living, but it's a senior living facility. And this is the next noisome trade that MAHB will be involved with in the town of Taunton. And so that's stuff that you'd be looking for also. And a noisome trade could be anything from a pig farm, that's the classic example, to something like this batch plant. So then this is where, and I noted that the town manager or the mayor, I'm sorry, is present. This is where you have to make sure that your planning board and your board of health are in lockstep. Because in that case that I just showed you, this is a up and running for many years facility, and the Board of Health is going to shut it down. It's going to affect the tax base. It's going to affect real estate. It's going to affect real estate values. It's going to anger a company that's going to sue the city when they do it. But this never should have been put there to begin with, because the Board of Health had no say. It was just done years back. And I think it's going to be a very interesting story how it got done, as history will show once they get into it. But this is the result of not having a planning board and a board of health work together. So these are some examples: fat rendering plants, fish meal and fish oil, auto body shops, piggeries are the definition. So you want to make sure that you have a great relationship with your planning board, and I'm sure that Mike has a great relationship with the planning department, because I don't think I've ever seen Greenfield have a situation quite like what Taunton's facing right now. So this is this is just an example. I thought I took this slide out, so I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to let you take a look at the slide for a second, and you notice I don't read my slides. I think that there's a special place in hell for people that make somebody watch a slideshow and read it to them. I just can't do that. So I'm going to give you a second. I want you to look at these. These are areas where you have 100% of the authority in your town. No other board, no other commission has the authority that you have, the final say. School committee does have over school health. That's about the only one that you actually would be sharing with someone else as another board. The school committee definitely has school health. However, your nurses override the school committee nurses. The school committee has to report to you, to the Board of Health. They have definite, and I'm not going to get into it because you have a great public health nurse there, and she works very well with your school department, so there's no reason to get into it. But these other areas, you're the only one that does this. You know, the DEP on safe drinking water, I made sure that I'm going to have a quick, much better. I made sure I put drinking water first because of the Great Barrington case that's going on right now. And while the DEP is responsible for making sure the water is safe as it gets into the pipes, once it comes out of the pipes, if it has a health effect, it's yours. Okay, so just to go over inspections real quickly, you get the authority from the state and local law. You can pass health regulations that that determine what types of inspections. Inspections are either periodic or complaint driven. If somebody calls the Board of Health and says, I just saw a mouse run across my pizza, which happens from time to time, then the Board of Health goes in on a complaint driven inspection. Otherwise, you can expect your inspectors to be in the restaurants twice a year doing full restaurant inspections. There are instances where the restaurant may say you can't come in here. You can't force your way in. All you can do is go to court and get an administrative search warrant. That would be something that you'd hear about as a board member after your health director has already gotten that warrant and has already gone in. Generally speaking, maybe the chair will be appraised of it. If the chair wants to know about it, that's fine. But your inspectors and your director know exactly how to get these and get this done. This is interesting because you can write a civil ticket for up to $300, and you can apply for a criminal complaint. And you'll notice the red. The reason I put that in red is I want you to pay attention to the date that the SJC handed down a decision saying that boards of health can enforce a DPH regulation without applying for a criminal complaint. You can just issue a criminal fine. This happened all the way this morning at 9 o'clock. And so this is a little history, and it's extremely good news for us because we worked with the Board of Health of Braintree. We wrote the briefs. Cheryl Sabaro, who you will all get to know, was in front of the SJC on this argument as an amicus, helping the Board of Health of Braintree. Cumberland Farms wanted to sell flavored tobacco and said that it's not a flavor, it's not a scent, it's a chemical reaction. And that was their defense. And the Braintree Board of Health took them to task over selling flavored tobaccos and tobacco products, and Cumberland Farms lost. You'll see most of the tobacco cases that you'll come across as a member of the Board of Health will say Cumberland Farms versus the Board of Health of XYZ, because it's always Cumberland Farms that challenges it. So you can do an order of correction, which is where you're telling somebody to clean up their act. You can do a cease and desist, which is where you're telling somebody stop doing what you're doing. And you know about the $1,000 fines, $1,000 per event, per day, however you want to do it, or you can make it just a straight $1,000 fine. And I don't know, I've got my background on, so I'm not sure if you can see, but my dog is trying to eat my ear, and I'm going to sort of push him away in case you can see him. But you can also suspend, revoke, and refuse to issue permits. If you're going to take somebody's food permit, they have due process. You have to let them know that they're going to be coming before the Board of Health to defend their food permit. That's very specific. There are cases on that saying that that food permits are a property right, so you have to give them all due process to do that. You can issue an injunctive order as if you were a court. You can order somebody to stop doing something until such time as the Board of Health has an opportunity to look at it. And sometimes you'll see that where your inspectors and your director might say that this restaurant is so bad that we have to shut them down and bring them in. And you might be asked to meet on 48 hours notice if the restaurant asks for protection of the Board of Health. All right, so this is something that actually this slide is something that I did a whole presentation yesterday on this issue of ordering food consultants for a Board of Health. And today alone, I got 3 requests from boards of health for my slide deck from yesterday. And yesterday was the first time I ever did that. So I guess the word's out that MAHB has something on food consultants. If you're going to if you want to take a middle ground, you don't want to shut down a restaurant, but they're real bad and you got to do something about it. You can order them to hire a food consultant. I would say make sure that you do it from the state approved list. There is a state approved list without any endorsing of anybody. It's just a list of who meets the minimum standards. In this particular one that I did yesterday, they allowed the restaurant to hire somebody who the restaurant wanted to hire and was not on the state approved list. And I went yesterday to this Board of Health meeting to explain to the food consultant that she is an agent of the Board of Health. She's not an employee of the restaurant, although the restaurant is paying her. She has to render a report to the Board of Health, and the Board of Health takes her report into consideration whether or not to close the restaurant. And when I was in Framingham, I know that we closed 4 restaurants in my 15 years on the Board of Health. All 8 of them, I mean, all of those were in my 8 years as chair. And so I know how politically unpopular it is to close everybody's favorite restaurant. We were a town at the time. I had selectmen that were going on Facebook and talking about how could that Hugo guy and his board close our favorite Chinese restaurant in town. You know, so you're gonna put up with that, but that's part of what you signed up for when you became a board member. But you can order a restaurant to have a consultant on premises. That one that we ended up shutting down, we actually ordered them. If your lights are on and the doors are unlocked, you have to have a food consultant. It was that bad. And the food consultant, after 2 days, asked us to have a special meeting, an emergency meeting, to shut that restaurant down because he came in and he shrugged his shoulders and said, "There's nothing I can do to save this restaurant." And Megan and your health staff all know the food consultant that we hired in Framingham back in that day was a guy named Sam Wong, who now is the director of the Office of Local and Regional Health, which is the office of DPH under which boards of health function. So Sam has gone a long way from being a consultant to where he is today. All right, so you can do that. You can order the consultant. When you get the slides, you can take a closer look at this about things that you want to consider ordering. And what the authority is to do it, and really the reporting mechanism is important. So as we kind of get out of this section of the presentation, just keep in mind that this was a Second Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals decision, and Judge Kaufman wrote, "The judicial system is the most expensive machine ever invented for finding out what happened and what to do about it." And that, if you can avoid going to court, avoid going to court. That's all I can tell you. But don't be afraid to if you have to, and know that we're with you. Let's cover the open meeting law for a couple of minutes. You are doing an open meeting right now, and every time that you are together, that as a quorum, which is anytime 2 of you talk to one another. You can talk about certain things we'll talk about in a second, but if you're talking about official business, it can only be done in an open meeting. It can't be done privately. You can't call each other and say, "What do you think about such and such?" if you're going to be doing it. So let's look at agenda posting. Everything has to be posted at least 48 weekday hours prior to the meeting. So if you're meeting on a Monday or a Tuesday, you have to make sure you're posted by Friday to do that. I'm not going to go through the slide completely. I will just tell you that that be careful about communicating with one other person. If you are a 5-person board, you could talk to one other person. We like to see 5-member boards, and the reason that we're pushing, that MAHB is pushing to see 5-member boards, is that one of the instances that happened to me in Framingham was we had a mercury spill in a school, and I needed to speak to the doctor on the board about mercury exposure risks, and I couldn't pick up the phone and call him to talk to him about it. And I got the call. I was actually in New York, and I turned my car around and went back to Framingham. I got back to Framingham at 9 o'clock at night and started calling parents of the kids that were in the classroom where the mercury spill happened, telling them, "Don't wash your clothing in your washing machine because you will destroy your washing machine. You'll have to get rid of it. And keep your kids' clothes and bring them to the school tomorrow. And by the way, your kid's not coming to school tomorrow. School's closed until the Board of Health opens it again." Uh, that's the kind of stuff that triggers an emergency meeting. But that also is a reason to have more than 3 people on a board, Mayor, uh, respectfully suggesting. But that's something that's a fact of life, that it's very difficult to have a 3-person board of health, especially when you have a doctor and everyone wants to call the doctor and ask, are we in trouble on this? Do we need to take some steps to protect people with this? That can only be done in an open meeting. So these are things that you should know, that you will meet sometimes with your city council. You'll meet with your planning board. When you do so, always post a joint meeting. Always, when you're invited to appear before the city council, always post a meeting, because there's nothing more frustrating than sitting with your city council, hearing them talk about something that has to do with your Board of Health, because that's why you're there, and knowing that they're wrong, but not being able to speak up because you'd be committing an open meeting violation by speaking up because you haven't posted the meeting. So make sure, in order to speak in that meeting, regardless of if you think that you're just coming to listen in or whatever, if it has any effect on public health, be sure that you get that posted so that you can speak in that meeting as a Board of Health. And when you do that, convene your meeting, just like they convene theirs. Say, I call the Board of Health to order. You can do it very quietly. You don't have to make a big celebration about it, but just be in order, be in session, and then you're covered. I won't go through all of these, except we'll talk about email in a couple of seconds when we talk about public records. All right, well, we'll talk about email now, apparently. Sorry about that. Do not reply all on any emails that you get, because you're automatically going to be replying to the quorum, and that has been looked at as an open meeting violation by the Secretary of State's office. Secretary of State's office is the bureau that has to do with the open meeting law. And I'm sorry, open meeting law is the Attorney General. Secretary of State is public records. So be careful about any public records that you generate, that you don't send it to everybody. You can use email for scheduling purposes, and you could talk to one another. You can call, doctor, you can call one of your other members, and you can say, or whoever your chair is going to be, you can call the other members and say, I want to set a meeting for next Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Are you available? Or next Tuesday night, whatever it is, you can call them and talk to them about that. You can't say, because I want to talk about this, which I think, by the way, we should not be doing it that way. Then you're in some serious trouble when you get that far into the conversation. Assume that your emails are going to be forwarded to unintended recipients. I cannot stress this enough, and I will show you at the very end of this what happens when something that you don't think is getting out to anybody because you didn't take proper steps to protect it. It can be devastating to you on many levels. Social media. If you know that there's other members of the Board of Health on the same social media, you could be doing hello Greenfield. I don't know what your Facebook page is out there, but you could say, the Board of Health is taking this up next Tuesday because we think. That's a violation if you've got one other member of the Board of Health that's on there. You have to be very careful about doing that. It took a long time for the AG to issue any decisions at all on social media. They kept sending out cautionary decisions saying that we're not going to make this ruling at this time, and the but now is that we're at the point now where they do rulings on it, and they will find you in violation of the open meeting law if you post stuff on Facebook that has to do with your business and that someone else is reading that's also a member. Public speak. This is the most sensitive thing of the day right now. And we'll get into this in a second, but you cannot, first of all, you don't have to allow public speak. You can make that announcement both. I would do it both ways. If you're not going to put it in your agenda, that there will be no public speak at this particular meeting, you can announce it at the meeting. It's better to put it in advance, because then people won't show up and be angry that you're doing it. There's no obligation to hear from the public in any meeting that you're doing other than a public hearing. But as a regular meeting, if you're covering some business that you're doing, you don't have to hear from people. And we're going to talk about I think it's around 2 or 3 slides. We're going to talk about what happens when you do allow it. So these are considerations for the chair. You might want to ask how many people want to speak. You know that you don't want to spend much more than a half an hour on public speak on a particular issue. So if 2 people raise their hands, you might say, I'll give you 5 minutes each. If 30 people raise their hands, you might say you get 60 seconds. That's kind of excessively short. You might need to extend that a little bit more than 30 minutes. You should try to give them at least 2. I always say that if someone can't say what they want to say in 2 minutes or less, you shouldn't be listening to them, which I guess flies in the face of the fact that that so far I've taken up around way more than 2 minutes to talk to you right now. But you can do the math calculation and hold everybody to the same rule. Don't let anybody go over. Shut them down. If you're on Zoom, mute them. It's very effective. It stops them. You can mute it from your end on Zoom. You can do that. Now, what happens if it goes off the rails? This nice looking lady, and that's the New York Times article. Her name is Mrs. Barron, and Mrs. Barron sued Mr. Kalenda, who was the chair of the select board of Southborough, because she got up in a meeting and she was across the room, way at the back of the room at a podium, holding a poster and talking about how many times they violated open meeting and how many times the Attorney General has written bad opinions about that select board, and told them that they're lawless. And Mr. Kalenda told Mrs. Barron to stop, to be quiet. She called him Hitler, and he adjourned the meeting at that point, which you probably can do that. You probably can adjourn the meeting if things are going off the rails, but you have to expect to end up in court if you do, because the SJC, in its decision against the Southborough Select Board, held that there is no such thing as a constitutional civility code by any city or town in Massachusetts. So a lot of cities and towns have spent a lot of time and effort adopting civility codes. They are now all unconstitutional. You can't have one. So that's a huge step. So if somebody starts and you've given 3 minutes, you got to let them go. The only exception is, and when you see our full presentation at one of our seminars that you will be attending, and I'll tell you about those at the end. When you see the full presentation, you'll see some of the footage of the SJC argument, and they got into, where do you draw the line? And the justice that was questioning Mrs. Barron's attorney, said, well, can you incite insurrection? And the answer is yes, you can, as it turns out in this decision. But where you draw the line is if you're in reasonable fear of bodily harm as a Board of Health, you can draw the line at that point. And I will tell you that Cheryl and I were in front of a Board of Health at the end of COVID talking about masking, and one of the board members was a board member who was anti-mask, anti-vax, and started to lecture Cheryl and I on civil liberties, and we listened to it. And the chair of the board asked the board member to stop already. And he said, I'm going to only stop. If I stop now, I'm taking these 2 out to the parking lot to finish the discussion. They adjourned the meeting, and you'll see in our presentation, you'll see video of this too. They adjourned the meeting, and Cheryl and I had to wait in the health office for 45 minutes until the crowd left and the police showed up to escort us, actually drive behind my car, was what I was told. And they escorted us out of town because they were afraid of what this crowd was going to do because we were talking about masks during COVID. So it can get that crazy. All right. So meeting minutes. I'm not going to get into this with you right now, other than to tell you that I think that your staff certainly is never going to let you go wrong with your minutes. But there's certain things when you see the slides later on, you'll see things that have to be in the minutes. Approval. This is a very interesting thing. Um, on approval of minutes, almost every time I go to one of these board meetings and listen to them approving their minutes, somebody abstains because they weren't at the meeting. Under Robert's Rules of Order, you can still vote in favor or against the minutes when the minutes are being adopted, even if you were not at the meeting. And Robert's Rule says that vote is actually signifying confidence in the meeting minutes and whoever generates those minutes and whoever the minute taker was. So you don't have to abstain when that happens. But there are definite rules, and your staff will not let you go wrong because they've been through this for years and they know what they're doing. And executive session, the only thing I'm going to tell you about executive well, no, it's not. I lied to you. I'm going to tell you a couple of things about it. But one of the things I'm going to tell you is that anything that gets said in executive session, you cannot talk about outside of executive session. You can't tell your family what happened. You can't tell your friends what happened. You can't tell the person that it was about what happened. You cannot take anything outside. It's a wall. And there are severe consequences for board members that violate that portion of the law. So emergency meetings, they do happen. And I'm thinking right now, Greenfield, it's very conceivable you could have a tanker rollover where you are. You're not far. You've got Route 2 that goes right through town, and you could have something, and you might need to have a meeting right away. And the second bullet here, poor planning does not equal an emergency. That's very, very important. But natural disasters that have a public health implication, those are emergencies. The mercury spill that night turned into an emergency meeting because that became the only way I could talk to the doctor. So I had to actually convene. He had to come over to the school. The third member was not available, but he came over to the school so we could actually convene a meeting and have an emergency meeting to help the school department, or it was a regional school, help them determine whether or not they were going to close their school. And we did. So these are the four things. There's 10 exceptions for executive session where you don't have to be in public, where you can actually meet privately. I've picked out these four as the most applicable to boards of health. Some of the other ones really you'll never come up against. And it's exception number one, and not number one because I put it number one. It is exception number one is to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual. This has been up until about 2 years ago. This has been completely misinterpreted by every board and every commission in every town in Massachusetts, because they've all thought that this means that if we're going to discuss firing the health agent, an inspector, a nurse, a secretary, an admin, whatever, if we're going to discuss firing somebody because we think that they're having a tough time rather than their professional competence, but because they're on the edge, and this happened a lot during COVID, then we get to go into executive session. That's a misreading. And it happened that I was watching a hoarding case while I was waiting to do a presentation for a board of health. And during that presentation, it became abundantly clear to me that this poor woman was suffering from a variety of mental disorders, and she was having some severe mental problems and psychiatric problems. I think, I'm not a psychiatrist, but she was in distress. And I'm thinking, this is cruel. It doesn't make sense that they can ask this woman, that the Board of Health can show pictures of her house on the record. It just didn't make sense. So I called the AG's office the next day, and you can all call the AG's office, and I recommend that you do with any questions. Talk to your city solicitor, talk to us. And if there's any question, we'll send you to the AG. I called the AG's office and I said, is exception 1 only for workplace? And they said, yes. I said, will you go back and reread it? And she pulled it up on her screen and she said, yeah, it's, we were talking about professional competence. And I said, but there's a comma before that. And she said, yeah. I said, now think about, go back to law school in your mind and talk about statutory interpretation. And she looked at it and she said, are you going to tell me that you think? And I said, yes, I'm calling you for boards of health. And we deal with mental health crises all day and all night. And she took it back to her people and they actually sent me an email telling me that we've discovered a whole new thing about our law. So if you have a hoarding case, it's a long story to tell, but if you have a hoarding case, that's a mental health disorder. It's a DSM categorized, classified mental health disorder, hoarding, and it's actually got clinical implications and all of that. So if you have a hoarding case, offer the person the opportunity to go into executive session because it's terribly humiliating. The others are obvious: litigation, job applicants. You can take the first job interview into executive session, but once you've narrowed it down, those people who you're going to be, those people who you're going to be interviewing have to be interviewed in public after the first round. That can cost somebody their job. It's a small community. It's a small world. Public health is a small community. And then trade secrets. I don't know if you have, in Framingham, we have a bunch of high techs. I don't know if Greenfield does or not, but we had to have actually a Board of Health representative on their IRBs, on their review boards. And we could not discuss anything that happened in those IRBs, but if we had a problem where there was some trade secret or confidential sensitive material like that, you can go into executive session for that, but that's very highly specialized. There's a process. I'm not going to make you go through it because your director knows how. And so you're in your meeting and somebody decides they want to record your meeting. And you're not happy about the fact that they're doing that. And I don't know whether this will come through or not with what I'm about to show you, but any person that's in the room can announce to the chair, I am going to record this meeting. The chair cannot say you can't record this meeting. Nobody can say you can't. It's public record. It's a public meeting, and they have an absolute right to record. What they don't have is the right to disrupt. And I'm hoping that this is going to work. I'm sure that the video will play. I don't know about the sound, but what you're going to see right now is that handsome guy with no hair on the front foreground right. That's me, and that's Cheryl Sabara next to me. And this is the meeting. This is actually the meeting that when it came back in. No, I'm sorry. This is the meeting that at the end of the meeting, the guy in yellow is the guy that came over to Cheryl and I and said, we're going to take this out to the parking lot. And the discussion was ongoing about the masking. And there was an anti-mask guy there. There were rows and rows of seats behind Cheryl and I. I'm sorry we didn't get a better picture of nobody wearing masks. I was terrified because it was like during the peak. It was, you can see the date, December of 21. And they were going to, this guy wanted a videotape, but he was walking around the room. And he actually, at one point when I spoke, put his phone 5 inches from my face while I was speaking and stood between me and the table of people I was talking to. So you'll see what happened here. And this is actually proper procedure.
Correct. Do you report Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? On Monday's numbers was 122.
So that's
And
the
then
guy.
it stayed flat.
And I'm sorry, sir, you need to leave. You need to leave this meeting. I warned about reporting and I asked you to stop reporting. I need you to leave this meeting. I'm asking you to leave this meeting. I have the right to leave this meeting. You need to leave this meeting.
I believe he told you he was gonna put it back on record.
It doesn't matter. I instructed you to, does not matter. Does not matter.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, we are adjourned.
I oppose, correct? The
Oops. Okay, so that's what happened. It really did happen. And it was pretty terrifying. I'm going to be very honest with you. And that was after a long string, and we're coming to the end, so don't get too nervous here. Remote and hybrid considerations. This is a this is a remote meeting. You're doing it right so far. We don't know what's going to happen after March 30th. As far as I know, it will get extended, I'm sure, but if it's anything like last time, it'll be March 32nd before they get around to doing it. Anyway, so public records, this is very quick. We're coming right to the end now. Everything that you're doing, every record that you have, anytime somebody walks up to you, like this guy in the picture is showing them a document, that document had to be taken out of his hands and photocopied and returned to him before that meeting. Before it was done right after the meeting, before he went home, because that now is a public record because you see the two board members looking at it. And that was in a very contentious hearing that was going on. So every record is presumed to be public. Emails, text messages, and when we get to the close, you'll see how bad that can get. Everything you do is a public record. Every personal emails. I'm hoping that your town government will give you a greenfieldma.gov address, because it's very difficult if you get a public record request. It's very difficult to hand somebody in City Hall your computer and tell them you can go through my emails, because that's what could happen if you start getting emails on your personal account. Anything that you look at, anything that you write, that's a public record if it has anything to do with the business of the Board of Health. And these are the last few slides. Let's talk real quickly about ethics. And ethics it's a very important issue, and it's very, very easy to fall off the ethics wagon. You are a public employee as of today, as of the time that you were sworn in. And in the eyes of the Ethics Commission, you now have things that you can't do. And I'm not going to go through these slides item by item, but you cannot basically do anything that benefits anybody who you know or love and in any way, shape, or manner. You can't go on behalf of someone else to the planning board. As a member of the Board of Health, you're not allowed to do that. You can't go to the city council if there's a hearing on behalf of somebody. You can go there as a member of the Board of Health. You can go there as an individual citizen, but you can't go there because Uncle Louie is trying to open a restaurant and needs a victualer's license. You can't go there for that. And you can't, if you're an attorney, you can't get in front of your town on any municipal government business. Multiple office holding. You can have as many positions as you want as long as none of them are paid. If any one of them is paid, you can only do that one position, and that includes stipends. Financial interest. These are obvious unwarranted privileges. You can't use your position. And this is kind of where you get to a sticky spot. There's nothing more aggravating than ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, my name is Joe Schmo, and I am the chair of the Board of Health, but I'm not standing here as the chair of the Board of Health who has served as on the Board of Health for 22 years. And I'm not trying to use the fact that I'm on the Board of Health to try to influence you at all. Come on. And that's just inviting a problem when you do that. You're just better off not making a comment in front of another board in town, or in another town for that matter, as a member of the Board of Health. Bribes, I guess we don't have to talk about that. Although this is 2025, maybe we'll become more relevant. I don't know. Gifts and gratuities. You can take up to $50 in a year as a gift, but it can't have anything to do with your work as something you've done for somebody. It can't be, you could, if somebody wants to give you a token, something because the Board of Health did something, they want to bring in a cake or something, that's fine as long as it's not $50 or more. Never misrepresent your position. And this is something where actually a member of a board went in front of another board trying to push an item of personal interest in front of that other board and advocated a position in front of another board, introducing herself as the chair of the Board of Health of such and such a town. And that subjected that person to up to a $10,000 criminal penalty. You cannot represent yourself to be the chair of a subcommittee that you're not, especially the fact that you're the Board of Health chair. If you're not duly elected by the board as its chair, you cannot speak as a chair. That will get you into some incredible hot water with the Ethics Commission. And as far as ethics is concerned, any questions you ever have, you can bounce them off us. You can bounce them off your, and we may, and more times than not on ethics, tell you to talk to your city solicitor or to your city attorney. More times than not, that's what we'll tell you, but we will always tell you to call the Ethics Commission, because you can ask for an advisory opinion from the Ethics Commission, and they will give it to you. That's just the best way to go. You'll always be safe, because if they've given you some advice and you followed it and somebody files a letter against you, you will win 100% of the time. So that's important to know. And there are a couple of small exceptions. If you do Title V work in your town and you're a member of the Board of Health, talk to your city solicitor or give me a call. I'll tell you how you do it. You can get paid by the town. There is actually on the Ethics Commission's website, there is actually a page dedicated to Board of Health members to try to keep you guys out of their radar. And we're coming to the very, very end now. These are quick notes on public records. I have 2 slides left. This is where I get into the fact, in addition to the open meeting that we discussed, the open meeting violation for communications, there is a public records issue. And that is, if you're sitting there right now, and I can't see you, but if anyone's sitting there right now texting and somebody's watching you on Zoom or on television, they can file a public records request for the contents of that text message that Susie Smith sent while she was sitting at the table during the Board of Health meeting at 7:04 p.m. on January 15th or 16th, whatever day it is today, 15th. And you have to turn those records over to them. Another very uncomfortable part of that is that you have to turn your phone over to the city attorney to take a look at all of your text messages to make sure that they're covered. So you have no privacy. If it's on your phone, you've got no privacy, no expectation of privacy whatsoever under the public records law. So all records have to be given. And how bad can that be? These are 2 texts between the mayor of Framingham, I'll tell you because her name's on here and it was all over the news, and her chief executive officer during a city council meeting. And the one on the left is her talking about the city council. And you can see what she said. And the blue is her chief operating officer who had it for the night. The other one that came out in that same one, so the blue is the chief operating officer. The black is the mayor. And the other one next to it, the black is the chief operating officer and the blue is the mayor. And they're talking about city council members. And if you don't think this got on the Channel 5 news, you're wrong, because it did. So you could see how embarrassing it can conceivably be if you have a records request and you have something in there that you don't want seen. My phone number and my email are on here. And as new members of the board, I want you to feel free anytime And I will tell you that my first phone call, well, my first text this morning woke me up at 4:30 when my phone dinged, and it was from my health director. And my first phone call was at 7:15. So don't worry about me. Give me a call if you need me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Mike or Ellis
I'm
or,
always available if you do.
okay,
So
No, I'm good. Just as long
okay,
as
hearing none.
at some point, and if possible, the slides just a reference to.
slides are coming out. I will also tell you that in April and May, and I'll get the dates to you when I get the slides to you. I'll get you the dates of. We do a Saturday presentation, and we're doing one at the Hotel Northampton, which might be the closest one for you. The other one is in Marlborough. Marlborough's easy because I guess you can get on a highway and go, but Northampton's probably more back roads. But we do an all-day Saturday presentation. You come have breakfast. We really give you everything. It's a whole day. Give you lunch. In the afternoon, we give you a snack break, including in last year's when we gave the snack break, one of the health inspectors that was in the audience stood up and said to everybody, "Hey, everybody, before you eat that candy bar, check the expiration date on it." The expiration dates on all the candy bars were 18 months before our event. So talk about bad timing. Give it to a bunch of health inspectors. But it's an all day, and under the new there is actually new legislation that was signed into law in November, and it changes the way that public health is being done. And under that new system, actually, there are required trainings, one of which is that Board of Health members need to go through a formal training. I don't know whether this might actually suffice. I don't know the answer to that because this is really the first general education thing I've done for a board since the new law came into effect. But I'll also include with the materials a guidance document that we've done, and I think that Megan, you've seen the document, and I think Mike has probably seen it too. But we'll share that with you. It really lays out what the new laws are having to do with boards of health, and it's extremely comprehensive. Everything from data collection to reporting what the board's doing. It's just everything. Everything that we do is now codified into law, and it's completely different. So I'll get you that. You belong to a collaborative. I had mentioned that very quickly in my comments. You belong to what's called a Public Health Excellence Collaborative. And there are a few towns. Megan, you can probably remind me which ones are in yours, but which ones are yours?
Leverett, Shutesbury, Deerfield, Sunderland, Montague, and Greenfield.
Okay, so you guys are all part of this collaborative. You share inspectors, nurses, social worker type. It's funded by the state. It's part of this new statutory scheme, and in order to try to get, instead of having boards of health try to go it alone, the state is pumping money into these collaboratives so that you can do some shared hiring of resources. I'll include a guidance document on what that's all about also. And just tell you that we're here for you. Doctor, we're very similar to the Mass Medical Association would be for physicians. We're here, we're your voice on Beacon Hill. That's my role actually as Director of Strategies and Government Relations. We go to court with you. If Michael calls up and says we're getting sued, the first thing that happens is, we get together with your city attorneys and determine what it is that we can do. And we're always asked to file an amicus brief even in the Superior Court, which doesn't take amicus briefs usually, but every judge we've ever filed one in front of is thankful because they don't know what the law is when it comes to boards of health, because it's unique. Like, I think you got that from the beginning part. You know, the first health order, just a fun fact, the first health order ever in Massachusetts, ever in the United States, actually, because Massachusetts had the first boards of health. The first public health order was in 1789, and it was signed by the president of the town of Boston Board of Health, and a guy named Paul Revere. And actually, I got a copy of it from an attorney that I'm working with on that cell phone tower case that I talked to you about, which is going on in Pittsfield. The attorneys from Centerville, Massachusetts, that's representing the people in that neighborhood in Pittsfield, and his name is Paul Revere, and he is a direct descendant, and he sent me that as a fun fact order. And the first order, in case you ever want to know, is that if you can only empty the contents of your privy, that's an outhouse, in an outgoing tide in Boston Harbor, if you live in the town of Boston. So you can't do it in the river, you can't dump it in the Charles. It has to be on an outgoing tide in the harbor itself. So now you know. Fun fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions from Mike before we move on? Okay, hearing none. Next on the agenda is the hearing on the fee schedule. Michael, are you ready for that?
Yep. So
Okay, so
I did send you guys.
well,
some-
I'll go ahead and open it. Do you want me to go ahead and open it now, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so it is 7:12, so we'll open the hearing for the fee schedule. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so yeah, we're just adjusting our fees a little. Last time they were adjusted was in 2019. So we are just changing some of them. It's just some minor upgrades on the fees. We did do a little survey of surrounding communities and also what the FERCog was charging for fees. And I did send those to you just to take a look. But we're going up a little bit. I think the biggest increase is on food establishments, which went up from, I believe, I think it was like 250 till now 300. We haven't got much pushback on that, so it seems like it's kind of in line with most of the other communities. As we are a city, we have 160 food establishments, so it is good to go up a little on those. The rest of them are pretty much staying mostly the same. The other changes are just small incremental changes on the fees. I believe, like I said, the food establishment retail one was the only one that went up, I think, over like $50. So hopefully you were able to take a look at that. But yeah, if you have any questions or anything.
I do not. Ellis or
No, I don't have any questions on that.
okay, so I'm not hearing anything from Ellis or Dr. Greenbacher. So I guess is there anything else, Michael, or should we close the hearing?
I don't have anything else. And you have anything, Megan? No. You're still muted, Megan.
Sorry. I think just because it's a public meeting, I could be wrong, but I think we have to just say, are there any comments from the citizens on the hearing? Does anybody
Okay.
in the audience have anything that they want to say about the fee schedule? And I hear none. Ahmed, take it on.
Okay, so it is 7:14. I'll close the hearing for the fee schedule and open the hearing on tobacco violations Country Mart.
Okay, so let me just say, I did talk to one of the other is it okay if we amend that and do the voting on the open hearing now and then close it? Would that be okay?
On the fees, you mean?
Yeah, is it okay if instead of closing the hearing, can we keep it open for a minute, vote whether you accept the change and then close the hearing? I know it's a little different than the agenda, but Mike, Hugo, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that that's the way we're supposed to.
I've closed that first.
I believe you can vote on it right after if you would like
Michael?
to. All right, Mike, we could vote on that right after.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, if you would like to call a vote on
Okay,
on the fee schedule change.
Okay, so I will not open the hearing for.
You're freezing. I don't know if you know that you're freezing or not. You might want to shut your camera off.
So with the fee schedule, so would this be in the form of a motion?
Yes, we would need a motion. We would need someone to make a motion to either.
Is that better?
Yeah, you would make a motion to accept the
Can you
fees. and
hear
then
me okay now?
someone would second. Yep, so you would make a motion to accept the fees and then someone would second, and then you can vote.
So I'll make that motion. We should accept the fees.
I second.
Okay, to make a motion. The motion and seconded. I guess we'll have any discussion before we vote regarding this. Okay, hearing none. So we'll go and vote. Ellis.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Greenbacher.
Yes.
Okay, I will abstain. So is two the quorum enough needed?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I guess now we can open the hearing for the tobacco violation.
Okay. So we are doing, this is regarding Country Mart on 40, I believe it's 49 Main Street, could be 47. So they have had some sales to minors. I don't know, I think you saw the email. The ones that we are talking about today are from 4/16/2022, sale of a minor, 12/16/2023, sale to a minor, 7/26/2024, selling of flavored products. So those three, they were fined and given a suspension, and they served their suspension. The fine from 7/26/2024, that was supposed to be done within 30 days. We just got it last week, the fine. We are, and then there was another one that we have not even discussed yet because we didn't have a Board of Health at the time. Let me just pull up, when I sent you the email about it was on 9/5/2024. I went to Country Mart at 9:25 in the morning to do a tobacco inspection. Mohammed was there and said that he needed to bring his jacket out to the car. And we asked him to stop. Underneath his jacket was a bunch of flavored products. So he did not get a fine for that one yet because we didn't have a Board of Health, so we wouldn't have been able to do the hearing within 7 days and things like that. So that one is on our agenda now as well. Mohammed has requested that we transfer ownership. He would like to sell the business to a man named Wahab. But during further research with the Tobacco Coalition, it looks like Wahab was already on some of the permits that we can find. There was something that he was like a director of, it was under Valley Mart or something like that. I sent you guys the paperwork. So that was a bit concerning. So I'm kind of leaving it up to you guys what to do. It's your decision, how you want to proceed with this. So I can read the law that says, in the case of 3 or more violations within a 36-month period, a fine of $5,000 shall be issued and the tobacco sales permit shall be suspended for 30 consecutive business days. For violations of all other sections to the city, the violator shall receive, and then there's just a list. Then, so that would have been the third offense and subsequent. This would be the fourth that we're talking about now. In the case of 4 violations or repeated egregious violations of any section of this regulation as determined by the Board of Health within 36-month period, the Board of Health shall hold a hearing in accordance with this regulation, and after such hearing may permanently revoke a tobacco product sales permit. So, that's all that I need to say right now. I'm just kind of stating the facts, and I think Mohammed is here and would likely want to say something.
Okay, so should we do public comment on this first or hear from Mohammed first? What is typical?
I think it would be best if we hear from Mohammed because, oh, actually,
Okay.
we do have the Tobacco Coalition here. Let's do Mohammed first, and then we'll do the Tobacco Coalition after.
Okay, Mohammed? Mohammed, are you there?
It might take him a second to unmute. I might be able to
Okay.
help him with that. Let me just ask to unmute.
All right.
Okay, we got it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, she explained things that we have done in the past, but those 2 violations in 2022 and 2023, and we hired somebody new. I mean, they are very well trained, but they still can make a mistake. Aging, people if they are under 23, under 18. So it happened in 2022 and then 2023, year apart. Okay. So, and then on July 26, 2024, flavored tobacco was sold. So, which we realized that is not the way it should be after the pandemic and all that, when it was banned flavored in Massachusetts, all those green stuff. It was very hard for everybody in small business like us, but I was managing this for my friends. This business actually is owned by the guy who owned already in Springfield area, but I was managing for him, and I was responsible for everything here. But once this thing happened, I really realized this is not the way it is. Because I've been in town, my all children, they're born and grown up here in town. And since 1995, 96, I mean, I'm in this retail business. We never had this kind of problem before. I had a dairy mart back in the days on Silver Street. And then I had a Valley Mart. I mean, we never had this kind of situation before. So, but last few months ago, last year, in the middle of last year, I mean, this flavored tobacco was kind of a problem. And then we realized ever since she came, Megan, and, mentioned that, in the possession of this tobacco. Ever since we just put a stop sign and we realized our mistakes, and we all learn with our mistakes, which we have. And we, I mean, I apologize for all the inconvenience. And ever since, I mean, we've been just stopped totally and trying to abiding by the law. And, because we live here, so we have to abide by the laws and stuff like that. I know we have done this, but, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say, I mean, we didn't do it. We did it, but I mean, I admit everything, but I apologize for all this inconvenience. But since the last thing happened on the 9/5/2024, after that, I mean, we were all set. I mean, we were not going to do it in future because we're planning to live here in town forever. And I've been here from last almost 30 years. So I realized our mistakes, this is not gonna happen again. I would appreciate if you guys consider me, giving me a last chance, and then, you guys, that's all I can say. So I appreciate it. This is our living, but I think we have to be pretty much, strict on these things and put a stop sign on that one, which we already did for the last few months. And I think this is it. So that's all I can say. I appreciate for your, consideration, and
Okay, thank you, Mohammed. So Megan, you said that there's someone in public comment.
Yeah, so we have Meredith O'Leary, who works for the Tobacco Coalition. The Tobacco Coalition works with lots of cities and towns in Massachusetts. Greenfield is signed on to be a partner with them. So Meredith would you like to speak?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. I am Meredith O'Leary. I am the Pioneer Valley Tobacco Coalition's coordinator. I also play dual roles. I'm also the health commissioner for the city of Northampton, but tonight I'm playing wearing my coordinator hat. So part of PVTC, part of the work plan that we provide to each of our communities that are members, and I think there's 34 of them right now, and we have 330 merchants that we oversee. We provide education, we provide inspections, we do youth compliance checks, and we try to provide the most current up-to-date regulation and technical assistance that the merchant and or the Board of Health or health departments need. So Greenfield has been part of the collaboration way before I ever took the coordinator's role, which is great because our primary focus of the coalition is to prevent youth initiation from smoking. So I don't have any testimony for you because the hearing today isn't about the most recent sale that our tobacco control officer was on, which was 7/26/24. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have of me or of the coalition's work at this point.
Thank you, Meredith. Ellis, Dr. Greenbacher, do you have any questions?
So Megan, you said that there was a periods of suspension in the past for previous violations. And could you tell me?
So the state mandates certain suspensions, like the first offense is $1,000 fine. The second one, I believe, is $2,000, and the third one is $5,000. That's mandatory. So even for this last violation on 9/5/2024, you are mandated by the state to give at least a $5,000 fine. The Greenfield Board of Health also has regulations for tobacco. And so for that violation, it's also shall suspend for 30 days. And that means no sale of tobacco products. So that is another thing that is mandatory by the Board of Health. And Meredith, correct me if any of this doesn't sound right to you, but this is this is what I'm pretty familiar with. So those are mandatory. They are able to, if we write the order today, Mohammed is able to request a hearing. So I don't know if we can just roll that in. And the hearing would have to be to say, I didn't do it, because the state fines are mandatory for the money fines. So you would have to prove that you didn't actually do it in order to kind of do that hearing, to get it changed. Then, so for that one on 9/5/2024, I think that the Board of Health would have to do the $5,000 fine and the 30-day suspension. The other part is that we need to discuss today is allowing Mohammed to transfer the permit into the other person's name. So Meredith can maybe talk a little bit about a bona fide sale. So the tobacco regulations are set up so that people can't just switch permits, because that would change the tolling period. So the tolling period right now is sales within 36 months. So if we were to change the permit holder, they would start off at 0. So the first fine would be $1,000. They'd go back to, I believe it's a 7-day suspension in the beginning. So we don't, so it has to be a bona fide sale. It has to be a sale of the permit to someone that is like a regular sale. So those are the other issues that we're there's like 3 issues that we're kind of dealing with on this one thing. Meredith, can you talk a little bit about that bona fide sale?
Sure, I just want to back it up a little
Yeah.
bit. And yeah, so excellent job, Megan. Like you're doing a really good job of interpreting all of this. It's kind of, clear as mud here. But what I do want to say is in the regulation, so because this establishment has already had its 3 violations, we're now on the 4th egregious violation. And in the regulation, it says in the case of 4 violations or repeated egregious violations of any section of the regulation determined by the Board of Health within the tolling period of 36 months, the Board of Health shall hold a hearing in accordance with this regulation, and after such hearing may permanently revoke the tobacco sales permit. So my advice to you as a board would, based off Megan's inspection, I believe on 9/24, Megan, I would issue an order, a cease and desist or violation order with the fine and the suspension, and have the hearing to then discuss permanent revocation of the permit. Lisa Stevens Goodnight is also here from Mass Municipal Association, who is an attorney, and she can introduce herself and her role in this as well. And then if you get to that point, then we can discuss what a bona fide sale looks like if we're going to go down the path of trying to sell the establishment. But you first, I think, need to take care of the violation. Oh,
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I get it.
okay. Because I think that's what tonight is about. I'm not sure.
Yep.
Okay, so it sounds like we have at least 2, maybe 3 different issues to talk about or decide upon. So I guess Ellis, Dr. Greenbacher, looking at the violation. So it sounds, Megan, from my understanding, that it's fairly explicit what the Board of Health shall do in instances such as this.
Yes, it's
Okay.
very explicit for the $5,000 fine and the 30-day suspension.
Okay. So Ellis, Dr. Greenbacher, any comment on that, or do I have a motion?
Well, I do have kind of like a question concern, because as we all just heard, it was explained that it was a mistake. It's not going to happen again after the July 26th sale of flavored tobacco. And if it's not allowed to be sold in Massachusetts, we're looking at another violation on 9/25. So we willfully went out of state to violate this regulation. The way I'm seeing it, I don't know if that just doesn't make sense, or if it only makes sense in my own head.
Megan?
Yes, that
Speak to that a little if you want.
the tobacco products would have had to been purchased out of state to be able to be sold in Massachusetts. And I think Mohammed had his hand up.
So I can speak a little before that. So the
Oh, yeah.
tax stamp on the bottom of the cigarettes that we did confiscate were from South Carolina. So they were from out of state, and I can unmute you now, Mohammed. Hold on.
Thank you, Michael.
Mohammed, we can hear you now.
Yes. First of all, I want to be clear. I don't own the entity. I don't own the business. I run the business for the owner. Can you hear me? I think we are losing some.
Yes, I can
connection.
hear you now. I just muted.
Okay. So I'm just the manager, right? And I don't own the business. My friend, he owned the business. And the product you're talking about, it was provided all from the owner. So All the product we used to, we have it here. We had it here before whenever, I mean, it was provided from the owner. We don't know where it comes from, where you get it from or whatever. So the last thing that was this on the 7/26, that was sold. That was the flavored product sold, which we did not know that one of the guy, he sold it to the the tobacco that tobacco product to the guy. But after that, when Megan came on the 9/5/24, found some stuff. After that, that's what I told you. After that, when you guys came and got the stuff, after that, we put a stop on. We're not gonna do it. Like I talked to Mr. Michael, the director. After that, he should remember. And I talked to him. I told him, I promised. I said, this is gonna be it. This is not the way it should be. And ever since, we didn't. Even from the Board of Health, you guys sent somebody. They check it out. They'll never find anything. They look it around, everything. They can come anytime. I'm offering anybody, anytime they can come. And the new business, like I say, the transferring from the old owner to the new owner, my son Wahab, he's buying. He wanted to buy a long time ago, but he buy it now. So that's the transfer we are talking about. I'm not transferring that business, but it's transferring from the old owner to the new guy, which is my son. He's buying it. So that is the case. So I just wanted to clear this about the situation, who owned the business and who is the new owner. So
Okay.
Can I also share one more message from Friday, May 3rd, 2024?
Thank you.
Oh, Ahmed, I hear that you're trying to say something, but it's all broken up.
Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, okay. Sorry. May 3rd, 2024.
May 3rd.
We got something from the Tobacco Coalition as well, saying from one of the inspections that they went there, they said, I strongly believe they are selling flavored tobacco despite not being able to find such evidence. They seem to be storing flavored tobacco on the clerk's possession, as well as in a plastic tote that I was not permitted to inspect. They removed it from the store during my visit. Thank you. And let me know if there's any follow-up needed at this time. So that was during one of the inspections. It sounds like there was a clear plastic tote. They asked to go through it. The person who was at the store said, no, you can't go through with it. Go through it. It's meat. And they brought it outside of the store. But the Tobacco Coalition at that time believed that it was probably flavored tobacco products as well, but that was on May 3rd. So that one's not listed anywhere here either.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. Hi, I switched over to my phone because I was having technical issues. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, so I guess back to Ellis and Dr. Greenbacher. Any further questions, or do we have any other public comment?
Just going to say one more little thing. Sorry. So Greenfield has I think what Meredith said would be a good idea to just go with the one violation tonight and then schedule another hearing for another day, just because if you pull a permit tonight, if you say we're going to revoke the permit tonight, it can never be given out to any other business in Greenfield. So usually we have other processes like to actually allow a bona fide sale before doing something like that. But it might be worth just putting in the fine and then scheduling a hearing for 30 days from now. That's it.
Okay, so that's the motion that you're I guess speaking to.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ellis, Dr. Greenbacher, would either of you want to make that motion?
Yeah, definitely. I'll make the motion to impose the fine and the suspension, or the right?
Yep.
Yes.
Could you, so just to be explicit, the fine in the amount of,
And Megan, correct me if this is wrong, for $5,000 and 30 days.
Correct.
okay, do I have a second?
I would second it. My only question is, I mean, seeing that to me it appears more willful, would we be able to go higher or longer than that?
Well, so, okay, so I hear, so it's been seconded, so I guess we'll go to discussion a little bit. So Megan, can you answer that question?
Can I defer to Meredith on this one? Can you go longer and higher? I don't know.
So, thank you. And Lisa, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So boards of health can be more strict than the state regulation, but not less strict. However, because you've passed a regulation that you've codified the days in for the first, second, and third violation and fourth violation, I would strongly recommend that you stick to that for equity issues, because what you do for one, you would have to do for another.
So my name is Lisa Stevens Goodnight. I'm the Director of Tobacco Control for the Massachusetts Municipal Association. I provide legal technical assistance to the cities and towns of Massachusetts through the MTCP the Mass Tobacco and Cessation Program. And so the yes. So what Meredith said is basically right. If you want to go above it, there's a requirement that you would have to update your regulations to go above that amount. And I would also, for towns that were considering it, would warn that enforcement of the fining would be complicated. You would have to go through the criminal system. You'd have to file a criminal complaint in court in order to collect the fine if someone didn't pay. So it is a more complicated way to collect that fine, but it would have to be in your regulations anyway to go above. That's part of the statute and regulations that were promulgated by DPH. So yes, you can go above, but it has to be there ahead of time.
Okay, that totally makes sense. Well, I'll second the 5,000 in the 30 days.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we put it to a vote? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Greenbacher,
Yes,
Ellis,
Was this a motion to revoke right now, or are we going to do another meeting?
suspension and fine.
Suspension and fine. Yes, I second. I vote for that.
okay, and I'm also yes. So that's unanimous. So Megan, I guess next steps after this vote.
So Michael and I will write up the cease and desist with the fines. We will give an opportunity for a hearing, and we will schedule a hearing again in around 30 days. And the effective date, you can tell me what date to put on the cease and desist, maybe, maybe a week from now or something like that, that we can put where they can't sell tobacco starting that date for 30 days.
Well, is there a reason to wait?
Well, it's best if you could at least wait till Tuesday so that I can get the paperwork there.
Reasonable.
Just so I can write it up on Monday and bring it there on Tuesday.
And just so we're all clear too, it means that everything needs to be moved from the store that is tobacco. It can't just be taken off the counters, like it needs to be off the premises.
And what is the enforcement mechanism for this?
We'll go there a few times and just take a peek around the store and make sure that it's not there.
Right.
And we go in the back rooms and things like that.
Okay, so I guess we need to pick a date. So I heard next Tuesday, which is the 21st. Is that what you're saying?
That would be fantastic.
Okay, so is there a consensus amongst the board to set this at start at the 21st?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Good for me. Yeah, the 21st.
Yeah, I'm also yes, Megan.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. So is there any further on this particular hearing, or can we close this hearing?
And so let me just ask, what's the next step as far as the hearing in the future? Are we going to set that?
Yes, and it's news to us that Mohammed wasn't the owner. So in 30 days, well, I mean, we saw different things on the paperwork, but he has always identified himself as the owner. So within 30 days, we'll schedule another hearing. So the next Board of Health meeting, we'll do the same thing we did tonight and schedule a hearing at the same time. And we'll make sure that we also serve the paperwork to the official owner.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarification.
Okay.
May I just-
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, may I just add, just for clarification, so the next hearing will be for a permit revocation? Yes. Okay.
All right. So Megan, I'm hearing that we're more or less closed with this hearing, so I'm going to close this hearing now unless there's any other comment. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close this hearing at 7:46. Next on the agenda is a leadership update with election of chair of the Board of Health. So I guess at this time, I would hear any nominations for chair. Ellis, Dr. Greenbacher.
I mean, I would, seeing how Dr. Greenbacher's a doctor and on the Board of Health, I honestly think that would be a great position for him, just with his medical background and expertise.
I appreciate that. I guess my only hesitation is that with a big family and a busy practice, I have limited time. And if it would add more time to my duties, I'm not sure if I could do it. And being new to the board, I would have to have a lot of hand holding, which I'm more than willing to ask for. So I would do it unless someone else wants to step in.
So really quick, Ellis, are you nominating Dr. Greenbacher?
I mean, I would nominate him unless he really just doesn't want to do it. But that is my initial thought process.
Okay, so I'm hearing a nomination. So Dr. Greenbacher, do you accept that nomination?
Or I'll accept the nomination. Yes.
Okay, and do you have any? Would you like to make any comment?
Just the comment that I made already. I am brand new on the board. I have not been on a city board before, and so like I said, I don't have experience with this, and so I would need some quite a bit of guidance until I would have my feet under me.
That's a hand right there.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Okay, so I guess we'll so that being the only nomination, I guess we can move on to a vote. So Ellis,
I vote for Dr. Greenbacher.
okay. I also vote yes, Dr. Greenbacher.
I'll say yes.
Okay, so at this point, you are the permanent chairs. I'm going to defer to you with the agenda for the rest of the evening. If you want to pick up, we're at the update by Michael.
All right. And where am I finding the agenda?
It's on the calendar, the city calendar. It should, if you click on the meeting, you should be able to access it.
I can also guide you through, Darius. So if you want to go with Michael's update, then I can find the rest of it for you if there's anything else after Michael.
It's going to be an update by me and then an update by Megan on nursing activities. So my update is just right now, I'll be brief. It's right now we are in the middle of new applications for all our food establishments. So we are doing renewals of permits. We have about 160 food establishments in Greenfield. We've received 100 permits back. We are waiting on the other 60, giving them pretty much till the end of the month. And then they will be getting a nudge from me and our assistants in the office to send in all their paperwork. And if I don't get anything by the 1st of February, I'll be reaching out in person to these people to make sure that we get all the permits renewed. So we are in the middle of that right now. We did lose a staff member in our office, so I will be looking for a full-time inspector that will be specifically for the city of Greenfield. So we are looking at posting that job in the near future. Megan is also looking to hire a inspector for our grant program. So we have that posted right now, and we have been currently doing interviews for that position. So that is posted on our website, I think on LinkedIn and the MHOA website as well. So we're hoping to get a couple more applicants and do some more interviews on that. The other things I'm working on right now is I am working on drafting I'm on a committee to draft ordinance for the opioid settlement funds. So I'm working on a committee right now to do an ordinance on that. I'm actually working with Mike's coworker Cheryl Savara on that, and that is moving forward. We're hoping to put that in front of the city council hopefully next month at some point. I'm also working with the Attorney General's office on cleaning up a couple high visible blighted properties in town. So working on 3 properties over there. I just did an inspection 290 Deerfield, 12 Montague City Road, and the other one was 270 Chapman Street. So I'm working on those properties, is getting them up to code or getting a receiver in place to get them up to code. And then we are currently doing food inspections at the time, a little short on help, but we're getting through them as we can. Trying to get them all updated. We're also updating all our filing system to make sure that everyone has their proper inspections, paperwork, all their certificates and everything like that. So we are in the process of getting that all in line. So that's quite some work as well. And then we are also doing some septic work, but it mostly slows in the winter. So we have some perks that come in and some new systems that need to be changed that we've also been working on. And then housing inspections kind of uptick in the winter with the heating season. So we've had quite a few of those, either, emergency heating situations or just the normal tenant disputes and everything. So that's kind of my update for now. And I will hand that over to Megan.
So I, a public health nurse, does mostly investigating infectious diseases. So anytime something comes in, like a salmonella case, campylobacteriosis, anything like that, I do the investigations, and we get them daily. Right now we have many COVID outbreaks. We do wastewater testing in the city of Greenfield, as well as our community partners like Montague and Sunderland. So normally we ride around 1 million copies in our wastewater. We had the highest that we've ever seen last week at 21 million copies. This week it was 6 million copies. Again, the highest that I've ever seen. Before that, I believe it was 4 million copies, and that was a year ago. So COVID is very high right now. We're still giving out free tests at the health department, which is fantastic. Other things that are really high, flu is coming back for the season. It's not as bad as norovirus, which we've had outbreaks in nursing facilities and things like that. We've been working closely with them and the Department of Public Health to try to stop the spread. Some of the things that we have to do is when somebody is diagnosed with norovirus, if they're a food care handler or a nurse, anybody who puts food in somebody's mouth or a pill in somebody's mouth is a food care handler, and we have to make them quarantine for 72 hours. That's state rules. I shouldn't say quarantine. That's a bad rule. They can't go back to work for 72 hours because of the infectious process. So that is where we're at with the norovirus. And I've been helping Mike out with inspections. Because we have this grant, I've been able to get trained on some of the other things like food inspections, housing and soil and things like that. So I'm helping Mike fill in some of the gaps as he's training me at the same time. And I think that's it. And Dr. Greenbacker, I think there's nothing else on the agenda. You could just ask if anybody else has any unanticipated business. And if not, you could ask for a motion to adjourn.
All right. So as Megan guided me, any other business, unscheduled business? All right. I see Mohammed. Can someone take him off mute?
Okay, sorry. Okay, so my understanding today is so they're going to fine me $5,000 and 30-day suspension today.
Well, a point
Yeah.
of order, are we taking comment?
No, so technically, we can't answer that, Mohammed, but you can definitely call me tomorrow or what's tomorrow? Yes, tomorrow, and I can go through it all with you. Unfortunately, once the hearing's closed, we can't,
Oh, okay.
sorry,
Okay,
but
no
call
problem.
me and I can tell you
I'll call
everything.
you tomorrow. I call you tomorrow. No problem. Thank you. So I can take exit now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. So it doesn't sound like there's any further issues.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
There you have it. I'll second.
Yeah.
All in favor, Darius? You would just say all in favor?
All in favor?
No, you have to do a roll call. You have to do a roll call.
Roll
Yes.
call.
Roll call, so just say your name and yes.
Ahmad, yes.
Ellis Taylor, yes.
Darius Greenbacher, yes.
Perfect. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a
I'd like
good
to
night,
thank
everybody.
everyone
Thank you for the
coming.
hand holding.